Page 19, outside of Fort Baltimore. And Eli is knocking on the door of a kind of wooden log fort and says, "Please don't embarrass me in here." "Password?" And Eli replies, "I'm looking for the Tempest of Souls." "Enter." Door opens, and Grosvenor, 1 part orc, 3 parts human, no parts mercy, is sharpening a blade at a blade sharpening wheel. And Eli says, "Mr. Grosvenor, I need some help. Those farmers near Mount Guffin are giving me trouble again." And Grosvenor says, "Yeah, and who's this?" "This is my client, Melik Orhan. I'm taking him to Mount Guffin." "And they won't just let you pass?" And Melik says, "They nearly killed me with a pitchfork." "Why do you want to go there anyway? There's nothing on Mount Guffin." And Melik says, "Does it matter?" "Of course it does. It makes no sense to put my boys at risk brawling with those villagers so you can go on a nature hike." And Melik says, "Listen, friend, I'm here as an agent of the Republic of Texas. I'm here to survey this mountain, and I'm going to do it. If you help me, when I get back, I'll pull some strings and get you an airship." "Can it drop napalm?" "It can drop delicious Orca Cola for all I care. Just get me up that mountain." Page 20. Grosvenor is saying to 2 of his mercenaries, "This one's strictly by the books. We rape the women and children first, and then, if there's time, we move on to the men." "Wait, is that an owl?" And an owl just gently descends to the ground, and suddenly it just completely turns into a black blob with red eyes that emerge into the form of Wanwu Sai, who is looking at several corpses, including the one that we saw Melik get scythed in before discarding. And she's thinking to herself, none of these bodies should be way out here. They're a dead giveaway that Melik Orhan's got to be the shapeshifter. Still, to lose 3 forms so rapidly, what killed him? And one of the farmers from earlier points at Sai and says, "I found us another one! This time it's a lady shape-shifting wizard." And another farmer who's with him, or a farmer wife, says, "I think they're called shape-shifting witches." And the farmer boy goes, "Same thing, right?" And the girl says, "'Cept you're supposed to burn witches." And Sai thinks to herself, "Fire?" And one of the other farmers says, "Hey, Jimmy, let me borrow your torch." And Jimmy replies, "This torch was a wedding present, and my wife will kill me if I get witch on it. Bother Tommy, he's got his damn rock with him." And we see Tommy, the farmer, hold up the rock and say, "And I don't care what my wife says." And Sai says, "No, not a rock, anything but a rock," with her hand over her forehead there. And suddenly the rock flies towards Sai's arm, or Sai's hand, and her arm just stretches out like a rubber band, and then flings the rock back at Tommy. Bonk! And one of the other farmers says, holds up another rock and says, "Let's all hit her at once." And then sound effect, mistake! And all of a sudden, all of the farmers are just lying either on the ground or against the fences or in the crops, knocked unconscious with rocks laying about them. Page 21. So one of the mercenaries says to Grosvenor, "What the hell was that thing, boss?" "I don't rightly know, but I want it. You two take the women back to Fort Baltimore. Grab any raider not on assignment, and we'll meet back up at the same staging area." Time skip! So Grosvenor is now standing and talking to a lot more mercenaries / raiders, some of whom are elves, some of whom are orcs, humans, whatever. And Grosvenor says, "I watched her fly around Mount Guffin a few times until a flock of silver pleagles forced her to land toward the southeast." And one of the raiders says, "If she can shapeshift, how do we catch her?" "That I'm not sure of. She seemed afraid of fire. She also seemed soft and rubbery, so don't throw anything or she'll just bounce it back at you. You'll split into groups of 2. Whichever brings her back will get to keep the 2 farm girls we captured." Another time skip! And now it's not time, and one of the human raiders says to his orc raider partner, I hate this. The orc replies, which part? The G-Man is sending us out to catch more mythical creatures, and once again, he's paying us in slaves. How the hell am I supposed to tell my wife again, sorry, I couldn't put food on the table, here's another hungry mouth to feed? And so the orc replies, don't you know anything about the economics of being a raider? You're being paid in human capital, not material capital, and you have to reinvest accordingly. Reinvest? And the orc says, I have over a dozen slaves that the G-Man's paid me with. They all earn more than their room and board by working in mines 10 hours a day. Except one of them. He makes soap. He's fantastic. I'm 30, and I'm a year out of retirement because of him. So one of the other raiding pairs is holding up a crossbow, or actually just a longbow with a flaming arrow, and pointing it at Sai, and says, I think I've got a bead on our shapeshifter. And her partner replies, you sure it's her? And the female raider with the bow says, nah, but rabbit hell, target practice. So the flaming arrow passes right through Sai's hand, setting her hand totally aflame, just burning like crazy. And Sai shakes her arm wildly and tosses the hand away as it burns, slacking off the burning goo, and thinking to herself, no wonder Jack's sister always complains about farmers. Then another arrow comes flying at her, which she dodges, and it embeds itself in a tree behind her. And one of the raiders yells, we got a lot more where that came from, shapeshifter. So Sai kind of melts into the ground, or burrows into the ground, and the male raider asks, where'd she go? The female raider says, I don't know, the ground. And so the guy says, should we go get a shovel? Well, where from? And we see that Sai has grabbed the rope from the male raider's hip, and the male raider says, maybe she'll come up for air. And then the woman says, or maybe she's already burrowed a mile away. And Sai just jumps up out of the ground in blob form and wraps herself around each of them and leaves them tied to each other tightly and says, now where's your smug elvish superiority at? And the elf raider says, I wouldn't have ended that sentence with a preposition. And then Sai just shoves them both over. Page 23. So Sai is now standing on top of the two elf raiders that are tied together and lying on the ground and says, take that, you stupid farmers. She's making little, like, victory hands. She's real excited. So anyway, we cut back to the orc and the human raider, and the orc says, I told you those elves would lead us to the shapeshifter. And the human says, and since they got themselves all tied up, I guess we won't have to share the prize. Charge! And they rush at Sai with torches, which she breaks in half with dual crossbows she has formed out of her hands. And she says, see that? I beat you two without even trying. And so then one of them grabs Sai from behind, and the orc just punches her in the face, and she kind of slacks off a little bit of goo in the process. And then he punches her in the stomach, a good solid tummy punch, except instead of being able to draw back, she takes the doppelblob goo out from her stomach and just starts encasing him in it completely, slipping out of the arms of her assailant and skeletonizing the orc. And then she flicks her arm toward the other human raider, like wrapping it around him like a rope, and says, you think you can run? Tell me how you want to die. And he says, I'd like to die the way my dear father did. And he places his hand on her breast, and she creates claws out of her hand. Snick. The violence is implied. Page 24. So the last Raiden pair, two humans, one with kind of a 1950s slicked-up hairstyle, and the other with a kind of anime headband and weird hair, are standing there with torches. And the 1950s hair guy says, I've got an idea. The G-Man says she doesn't like fire, right? Yeah. Let's ditch the torches. Then we'll convince her to hang out with us because we're so cool. Okay. Then, when she least expects it, I jump out and tackle her. And so the guy with the headband says, but the G-Man said she's pretty rubbery, so you'll probably just bounce off of her. And the 50s hair guy says, which will be awesome. We are so doing this. And so shirtless 50s hair guy says, boy, it is hard work walking in the forest with no shirt and being super sexy. Maybe if there were a shapeshifter here, we could make out. And Sai kind of turns around and yells, what the hell do you farmers want from me? And the guy says, we're not farmers. We work for the G-Man. He hired us to bring you to him. And Sai thinks to herself, G-Man? Like government man? That idiot Melik has hired these guys to take me right to him. And she raises her arms in surrender between the two human raiders and says, hey, I just... and all of a sudden, the shirtless one jumps on her back and yells, giddy up, pretty pup! And Sai's like trying not to fall over, and the guy yells, you have to try this, man. This is so fun. And the headband one says, hurry up. Yeehaw! And he tackles Sai to the ground, and they high-five each other while yelling high-five. And Sai is thinking to herself, seriously? And she looks up and wipes her brow again and is like, oh no, you caught helpless little me. And the headband one says, a pretty little Asian girl at the mercy of her rugged, shirtless male captors? This would go so great in my doujinshi manga. And Sai says, wait, what? And then we see a little info box over the headband guy that says, Dong Jong, Sai's least favorite person she needs alive for the time being, as he sketches rapidly in a notepad. So, anyway, page 25. Sai is being tied up by the shirtless human, and Dong Jong is just jotting away. Sai says, please stop drawing me. No. Come on, stop drawing me. No. And so now the shirtless human starts carrying Sai off, and Sai kind of makes her neck super long like a snake and pokes her head around so she can read what's on the notebook and says, wow, you really suck. And Dong Jong says, what the rabbit hell do you know about art? And Sai says, enough to know you can only draw people in profile or head on. And Dong Jong yells, that's my style! So anyway, we cut back to the fort where Sai is tied up and blindfolded and leaned against a wall. And there's a woman at a like little log fort desk window thing flipping through some papers. And she says, I don't see a case file for any shapeshifter. And the shirtless guy says, it's got to be there. And Dong Jong says, try under shifter, comma, shape. Ah, there it is. Head around back and pick up your payment. And so Dong Jong points at one of the farmer girls and says, you Melanie? Present. Finally, my first slave. We're going to the comic shop to celebrate. And Melanie says, you read comics? Dong Jong replies, I make comics. I'm an aspiring artist with some real talent. And Melanie says, don't you know how to draw folks not from the front or side? And Dong Jong yells, for the last time, it's my style. And Melanie says, if you can draw people in profile and head on, then you can combine those views to make 3/4 drawings. Then fake anything hard from there, sketching away in his sketchbook. And Dong Jong is just shocked. With my keyframes and your in-betweens, we could be huge. Books, movies, pillows. Move over, Wong Pong. Dong Jong is headed for the top. And Melanie says, I don't want to be an in-between artist. It's basically slave labor, damn it. And little info box. Melanie Planter on the fast track to take the reins of a media empire.